By nightfall, all three of them were moving in different directions, chasing ghosts I'd planted. Victoria was vetting her own allies. Adrian was questioning his sources. Moraine was on edge about her own contacts. And Cassandra? She called me just after midnight. You didn't tell me you knew Anya Rourke, she said, her voice smooth but edged. I kept my answer even. You didn't ask. There was a pause, the kind of pause that said she'd realized she wasn't the only one running a game inside a game. Careful, Leah, she said finally. If you move too fast, you'll trip. I hung up smiling. Because tripping wasn't the risk. The real risk was them realizing I was running all 4 boards at once. I'd been threading the needle for weeks, keeping Victoria, Adrian, Moraine, and Cassandra in separate lanes, never letting them realize how close their moves were to overlapping. Tonight, the lanes collapsed. 8:05 p.m. Gabriel's loft. I was mid-discussion with Gabriel about shifting the last of his assets into the Shadow Shell Company when my phone lit up with 2 messages, seconds apart. From Victoria. I need you at my place in 20 minutes. Urgent. From Adrian. Get to the atrium. Don't bring your phone. Don't be late. Different locations, same urgency, same night. The kind of coincidence that wasn't coincidence. I told Gabriel to lock the doors and not open them for anyone, then made my call, Adrian first. If he was summoning me with no electronics, it meant he either didn't trust the comms, or he didn't want Cassandra hearing it. The atrium was all glass and black steel, half empty at this hour. Adrian was waiting near the center, alone except for a man I recognized as his security lead. He didn't waste time. Victoria's about to make a move on Moraine. Big one. I need to know if you're with her or with me when it happens. My pulse kicked. Why would she go at Moraine directly? He smiled faintly. Because someone's been whispering in her ear that Moraine's feeding intel to me. Which means someone is trying to burn both of us at once. The implication hung there. He was asking if that someone was me. Before I could answer, his phone, the one he wasn't supposed to have, buzzed. He glanced at the screen, then looked back at me. Your other meeting? I know where it is. And you're already late. 9:04 p.m., Victoria's penthouse. I walked in braced for a lecture. Instead, I found Victoria standing by the window, her expression unreadable, and Moraine seated casually on the sofa, her hood tossed on the coffee table like she owned the place. Good, Victoria said. You can explain to both of us why you've been asking about Anya Rourke. Moraine's pale eyes slid to mine. And you can explain why Adrian thinks I've been feeding him intel. I stayed in the doorway, heart pounding. This wasn't 2 lanes colliding, this was 3. And Cassandra hadn't even stepped into the room yet. That's when Victoria's phone rang. She answered, listened, and then handed it to me without a word. Cassandra's voice came through, cool and deliberate. Looks like it's time for everyone to be in the same room, Leah. I'll see you in 10 minutes. 10 minutes later, Victoria's penthouse didn't feel like her territory anymore. Cassandra arrived first, alone, in a sleek black coat that seemed designed to absorb the room's light. She didn't even glance at Victoria or Moraine, her eyes locked on me as she stepped inside. Then Adrian walked in without knocking, his security lead posted outside like he was expecting this to turn ugly. For predators, 1 room. No buffers. No plausible deniability. Victoria poured herself a drink, slow and deliberate. We're going to clear the air tonight, she said. Starting with Leah. She's been touching every board, whispering in every ear, and I think we all want to know why. Moraine leaned back on the sofa, arms crossed. Because she's smarter than any of you give her credit for. Adrian smirked. Or because she's been playing us all like pieces. Cassandra stepped forward, her tone deceptively calm. I already told you all, she's mine. I've been shaping her path since before any of you noticed her. Victoria's gaze sharpened. That's the problem. You think she's yours. Adrian thinks she's his. Moraine wants her as a weapon. And you've all missed the obvious, Leah doesn't belong to anyone. 4 sets of eyes turned to me. The silence was a weight pressing down on my chest. I took a slow breath. You want the truth? I've been building something that doesn't need any of you to survive. Something that can exist when all of you are gone. That landed like a blade. Adrian's smirk faded. Moraine's eyes narrowed. Victoria's grip on her glass tightened. And Cassandra. Cassandra smiled, but it wasn't amusement, it was recognition. "You've finally said it out loud," she murmured. "Now you just need to decide if you want to survive saying it." Victoria set her drink down. "Or," she said, "we decide for her right now." The tension broke like glass underfoot, not shattering, but splintering into 100 sharp edges. And I realized this wasn't a negotiation anymore. It was the opening move of a war where I was the prize and the threat. The silence after Victoria's threat was tight enough to snap. It was Adrian who broke it. "Or," he said smoothly, "we skip the posturing and start cutting deals." He turned to Victoria. "You keep Gabriel, I get the Rourke connection, and we both stop pretending Moraine isn't bleeding intel to someone." Moraine's pale eyes cut to him. "You've been trying to paint me as a traitor for weeks. Maybe it's time you admit you've been playing both ends of your own board." Adrian's smirk thinned. "Careful. I've got proof you've been meeting with." "That proof," Cassandra interrupted, "came from a source I control. Which means you've been carrying my bait for months without realizing it." That landed hard. Adrian's jaw set. Victoria's eyes flicked toward me, calculating whether I'd known. I hadn't. But Cassandra had just shifted the center of gravity in the room. Victoria stood, setting her glass down with a quiet click. "Enough. We're not walking out of here without lines drawn. Either Leah picks someone now, or we all take her apart piece by piece until there's nothing left to fight over." Four sets of eyes locked on me again. And that's when the sound of breaking glass cut through the room. The penthouse balcony door shattered inward, two figures in black tactical gear stepping through with weapons raised. Not circle muscle. Not Adrian's. Not Moraine's. Cassandra's smile barely moved. "Looks like our fourth player decided to stop watching." Chaos hit instantly. Adrian's security lead pulled him behind the sofa. Moraine was already moving toward the attackers. Victoria reached for the side drawer where I knew she kept a weapon. And Cassandra's hand closed around my arm. "Time to go." She pulled me toward the service elevator as the room erupted, shouts, gunfire, the sharp crash of furniture. I didn't fight her. Not because I trusted her, but because in that moment, staying meant becoming the prize in a war I couldn't control. As the elevator doors slid shut, Cassandra's voice was calm over the noise above. "Now you see, Leah, the game's not between us anymore. It's between us and them." The elevator hummed downward, the sound of chaos above us fading into the mechanical calm of descent. I leaned against the wall, pulse still hammering. "Who are they?" Cassandra's eyes flicked to me, unreadable. "You've been thinking there are 4 boards, Victoria's, Adrian's, Moraine's, and mine. That's cute. There's a 5th. The doors slid open to the underground garage. A black sedan waited, engine running. "Name?" I pressed. She guided me inside before answering. "The Vera Consortium." I frowned. "Never heard of them." "That's the point," she said. "They don't show up in feeds, they don't make headlines. They're the ones who buy the headlines, Leah, and the boards they want to disappear." In the car, 3 minutes later, Cassandra handed me a slim data drive. "They've been probing all of us quietly. Tonight was the first time they stopped pretending. You were the reason." I stared at her. "Me?" She didn't blink. "Every board you've touched has shifted faster than they like. You're the variable they can't map." I let that sink in. The Vera Consortium wasn't just targeting me because I was useful, they were targeting me because I was unpredictable. "Then we hit back," I said. Her smile was thin, sharp. "That's the spirit. But here's the choice: you do it with me, or you try it alone and find out how fast they make people vanish." I looked out the tinted window at the rain-slick streets blurring past. I could still see Victoria's penthouse in my mind, the 4-way standoff shattered by an attack none of them saw coming. The war I'd been balancing was over. The new one had just started. I turned back to Cassandra. "We don't just hit back. We burn their board." Her eyes glinted. "Then welcome to the 5th path." 2 nights later, I stood alone in the same bar where Gabriel's agreement had felt like my biggest win. Now it felt like a relic from a smaller war. On the muted television above the counter, a news crawl mentioned an unexplained explosion at a high-rise downtown. The feed never said Victoria's penthouse, but I knew. And I knew no board would ever admit who'd lit the match. My phone vibrated once, a number I didn't recognize. I answered without speaking. A calm male voice came through. You don't know me, Ms. Vale, but I know what you did on all 4 boards. I also know you've just stepped onto the 5th. No threat in his tone. Just certainty. I watched the rain streak the window beside me, blurring the city lights into smeared constellations. If you know me that well, I said, you know I'm not stepping off. A pause. Then, good. That makes this interesting. The line went dead. I slid the phone back into my pocket and caught my reflection in the glass, not the pawn they'd each tried to keep, not the prize they'd fought to own. Something else. Somewhere above, the storm was gathering again. And I was already walking toward it. The first message came at 3:14 a.m. No name, no greeting, just a location pin and 3 words. They're watching you. I was out of bed before the notification faded, every shadow in my apartment suddenly sharper. By the time I reached the address, an abandoned rooftop garden overlooking the river, Cassandra was already there, her breath curling in the cold air. She didn't look at me when she spoke. They've started moving pieces you can't see yet. We hit them before they realize we're not just reacting. I glanced at the low table between us, a folder, sealed with a wax stamp I didn't recognize. What's in it? I asked. She met my eyes. The first Vera operative we're going to remove from the board. Quietly. Permanently. The wind rattled the rooftop fence. Somewhere below, the city kept breathing unaware. I slid the folder toward me. Then let's make the first move. The target was supposed to be easy, a mid-level Vera liaison named Reese Calder, the kind of man who thought blending in meant wearing the same navy suit every day. We tracked him to a private wine tasting in the back room of a high-end restaurant. Perfect. No public exposure, no bystanders. Cassandra's role was distraction. Mine was extraction. It started clean. She drew his attention at the bar, her voice low and warm. I slid in behind, pressing the chilled metal of a disguised Trank pen against his side. Step outside, I murmured. Quietly. But instead of freezing, he laughed. A short, knowing sound. I was wondering when you'd get here, Ms. Vale. The room went cold. He turned toward me, his eyes bright with amusement, and behind him, the mirrored wall shifted, revealing 3 more figures. Black coats. No wine glasses. Vera muscle. Cassandra's smile didn't flicker, but I saw it in her eyes. She hadn't planned for this. Reese leaned closer, his breath warm against my ear. The board you think you're playing? We built it. And just like that, I realized this wasn't our opening move. It was theirs. The first Vera enforcer moved. Cassandra's hand darted to my wrist, not to steady me, but to signal. Don't fight here. We backed toward the side door, our exit route collapsing with every step. Reese didn't follow. He just stood there, smirking like he'd already won. Halfway out, I made the call. We let him go. Cassandra's brow twitched. Why? Because he's too confident, I said. Which means he's carrying exactly what we need, and he'll walk it right back to them thinking we never saw it. By the time we hit the alley, I'd already marked the tiny tracking device I'd slipped into his jacket seam. Cassandra's smirk returned, faint but dangerous. So we don't need to catch him. We just need to follow him home. We vanished into the night, the city swallowing us whole. Somewhere above, the game's rail board shifted, and this time, we weren't the ones reacting. The tracker sewn into Reese Calder's jacket doesn't just lead Leah and Cassandra to the Vera Consortium safehouse, it cracks open a hidden city inside the city. A network of private clubs, encrypted exchanges, and ghost companies all feeding a single, invisible empire. But stepping inside means walking into a world where every smile hides a blade, every ally is a test, and every move is recorded by people who can erase lives with a signature. To take Vera down, Leah will have to play their game from within, knowing one wrong move means she won't just lose the board, she'll disappear from it entirely.